So back from the refreshment break, we're going to hear from our third presenter in the morning, Caroline Wending. So it gives me great pleasure to present Caroline to you. Caroline, her work explores ideas of place and belonging through layered projects that draw on history and explore local myths, inviting reimagining of sites. She creates artworks that are fragile and transient in the form of sensory walks, performances, and events, blurring notions of audiences and performers. She often works with collaborators, specialists in their fields, such as children, chefs, musicians, foresters, perfumers, master printers, and more. She takes her audience on a physical, sensory, and emotional journey, leaving them with a poetic encounter and a story to tell. Recent commissions include Habiting and Kettle's Yard, because it's empty at Whitechapel Gallery, and Hypoteinousa Wysing Art Centre, and of course Whitewood in Deveron projects in Huntly in Scotland is what she's going to share with us today. So Caroline, that's okay.
If I should say good morning or good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
On mute.
Sorry?
On mute. Unmute on your computer.
Oh,
I can't hear you.
No, it was fine.
Okay. As Marina explained, I'm going to talk about a particular project called Whitewood, which was commissioned by Deveron Projects in Huntly in Scotland. I'm particularly going to focus on ideas of communities and how we can have exchanges and how we can share as artists and create links, friendships, real exchanges between people. Before I go into the details of those things and friendships and sharing experiences, I need to introduce Whitewood and how Whitewood came about, were the ideas behind it. So Whitewood is often referred to as being a monument to peace and peacekeeping, with a lifespan of 900 years. It was conceived during the centenary of the First World War. I am extremely emotive. I was thinking I might not be able to talk today because of what's happening in the world. We have to understand I'm talking about a project that talks about peace and peacekeeping between countries. This project, as I explained, was a commission from Deveron Projects, and in 2014, I started working with the community of Huntly. The outcome of that experience of being in a community and being, in a way, the call was, we have oaklands that grew from oaks, Joseph Beuys, mother tree in Kassel in Germany, that were planted between 1980 to 1986. Joseph Beuys was trying to reforest a city that had been totally destroyed by the Second World War. So we're talking about regeneration, we're talking about peacekeeping, we're talking about pacifism, and we are obviously, the project doesn't only have the oaklings about, you know, the young oaks from Kassel, from Joseph Beuys' 7,000 oak action, but also It is linking together 3 countries, and we were celebrating 70 years of peace. Peace between the UK, between Germany and France. So to this project, I brought back stones from under the battlegrounds of France, French stones, stones that represented for me the representation of the making of so many cities. I was particularly thinking of Paris and its white stone. I also the earth is very important, because Scottish earth is actually what glues together and what permits growth for the wood. Now, the image you're seeing here is in 2015, we spent 2 days planting the wood. So the outcome of this project was a wood, and called white wood, and I will explain in a minute why white wood. So the image you see here, we had an unexpected number of people that came to the planting. We had 150 people that came from all over the world to plant the trees for this peacekeeping wood. We had 20 young Argentinians that came. It was a very moving day. And what I wanted to say as well about this wood is that we have 49 oak trees, obviously from Kettle, but we also have birch trees and a lot of minor trees and of white nature, and also white flowers that we planted. So the idea was to create something that would, the birch trees, for instance, help the oak trees to grow, they protect the oak trees when they grow. And hence you have this sort of linkage between nature. It was very, very important for the project that people were involved in the planting, in the whole concept of this wood. Because if young people, yes, less young people from the community took part and interest in a project, they would also care for it. And that was very, very important, that sense of caring and then sense of ownership. It's called white wood because of my research into pacifists, into conscientious objectors of the First World War. And I unearthed four conscientious objectors in Huntly. You have to understand, Huntly was the seat of the Gordon Highlanders, so a very fierce and well-known regiment. So within that community, you still had conscientious objectors. There were 1,500, about 1,500 during the First World War. But Britain was the only country that had a clause for conscientious objectors, and which unfortunately very often were ununderstood, and many ended up in prison or being badly treated. So it was a sort of a way to tell a community about perhaps a history that had been forgotten, but at the same time, which was a reason also to create this wood, and hence white, because of the white feather that was shown to what they used to call conscientious objectors. Now, also, I didn't speak about this particular flag. Now, the community was involved in embroidering 49 flags were made of Scottish linen. So people of all age took part in this, children, less young people, elderly people, all sexes, and the quotes embroidered on each flag were reflections by philosophers, artists, musicians, architects, writers on peace and peacekeeping. And the flags, the 49, like the 49 oak trees planted in the wood, they are basically a symbol of they were marking the trees. So what I want to say about this is that we were thinking of marking the trees, because the trees we were planted were absolutely tiny. They were baby trees. We didn't spend money in expensive trees because we believed that the forest needed to develop. Yes. So the land we used was it's in what is called the bin forest. So you imagine you have a wood within a wood, and in a bin forest, the bin forest, what is it? In 1919, the Forestry Commission, we planted what had been lost by the First World War, which meant a lot of trees had been cut, so we needed to create forests. And so the forest is mostly a working forest, so it's used for its timber, and regularly fields are being fallen, and we were looking for a site to put this forest onto, this little wood onto, and the Commission Forest at the time gave us many sites we could consider. And this is where my collaboration with a forester, Steve Brown, was extremely important, because he knew what would be the best place to plant oak trees, because Scotland can be very cold, so they need to be in the right position for them to thrive. And I remember one day I was with him on site, and he leaned down and took some earth in his hand and put it to his nose. I said, "What is he doing?" And I said to him, "Why are you doing that?" And he explained that he could smell if the earth was the right earth, if that was the right place to put the wood. So in that way, you know, talking about collaboration, about working with communities I find have, it's like a bank of knowledge, of savoir-faire, of it's like an university. Yes. And so you just have to find the right department and the right person. So this is a little bit how I like to work, is to engage with people and try to say to them, look, I want to do this. I don't know how to do it myself. I am not a specialist in that field. Can we work together? Can you help me? And Steve Brown was wonderful. And Steve Brown has carried on giving us lessons on how to care for trees, because those trees, although they're nearly 10 years old, they're 8 years old, well, they're 10 years old because they were 2 years old when we planted them, they need still care. For instance, last winter was incredibly, we had a lot of heavy snow in Scotland, and hence those young trees were, you know, covered in meters of snow, and some of them were really badly bent. And Steve, the forester, we went out onto a sort of caring mission for the wood. So he told us what we need to do to those trees in order for them to grow upright again, you know, how to cut them, how to really care. The wood was also conceived as a wood for the community to use as a ladder. So there are things like sweet Sicily that you can gather and put in your salad in the spring. There are things like raspberries. There are rowan trees, and you can make lovely jam with the rowan. And there's lovely mushrooms growing. There's hazel. So with time, this wood will produce more and more produce to be used by the community. Now, the thing I really wanted to talk about today is signage, but I needed to introduce the wood in order for you to understand. So I was telling you that the wood is in a sort of, in another wood. And what we find out is that people couldn't find it. I had people coming from England trying to find the wood, and you couldn't find it. And I was highly commended for an award in 2017, and it was from the Saltire Society in Edinburgh. And they said, well, you know, we just couldn't find it, and that worked against you. It might have been a first prize, yes? So the director at the time Claudia Zeske, who was just in transition, said, well, we need to create signage for this. We can't carry on like this. People need to know how to get that. And so Natalia Colombo, who took over the directorship of projects. So I worked with both directors under my last residency there that happened just last year, some of it online and some of it in situ. We, we said, what can be done? Now, when you talk about signage, you are talking about public art, yes? And you're talking, and you are sort of hitting big problems with lots of people saying no. Yes, even if it's interesting, they will say no to you. We can't have it. So you have to think outside the box. So my proposal, of course, never went ahead because it was impossible. Couldn't get permission, couldn't do it. But it was a good thing because it got me to think differently. And I was thinking, okay, we can't do what I want to do, but what can we do? And I'm very, very keen and very interested in the idea of walking. Walking being something that is good for you. Walking is something that you can, spend time in a landscape, outside, being with people, talking to people. And I said, well, I would like the idea of anybody to come to the wood, but how can I do that? I was thinking of people who do not have cars. So the wood became a route from the station to the White Wood, going through the center of the town. And so you don't need a car. You get to Huntley Station and you can make your way to Whitewood. Now, when I was in situ in Huntley, and we were trying to get people interested in this idea of the route of signage, one of the first things we did was to do a memory walk to Whitewood. And I'm going to show you now a little film that was made during this day. Now, for the memory walk, the film was made by a wonderful filmmaker called Bashwarat Khan, and it's well, I will talk about it once you've seen it. There is sound, yes, but no voices as such. There is sound. There should be sound.
Oh, there's no sound.
There is sound in the film.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Nothing's working.
It's very quiet.
So, with this walk, you have to understand people had just come out of the pandemic. It was the first time people actually met, even in an outside space. So that was extremely moving to be together. And it also explains how I had to engage. I couldn't address to people. I had to engage through visuals. And hence, I'm trying to go back to my presentation. It's here behind, I think. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do screen share.
Thank you very much.
No worries. So is this the slide?
This is the slide.
Yes.
Yes. So
You play.
okay. Oh, that's gone back to the beginning. It doesn't matter. I just
Okay.
pulled through. Okay. Okay. And my work often has gifting, actions of giving away as part of it. And I made, for this walk, I made little leaflets, which I printed. We have find a box of letter and use those to create little leaflets, people to engage with the environment, with this walk. So there are little pages of the book as I was making them in the kitchen, and the staff was trying out the different bits, forming this leaflet. What was interesting was I was trying to create a slow walk where the action of going to the wood was part of the experience. So you really engage with the world around, you walked through. It was not just a passage, it was part of the work. What was very interesting is that we had a crew of filmmakers to produce the film, but they became part of our walk. And the interest in this film was to see how us and as humans can mark the land with walking through the land. So recreate this mark on the land. But another element of the wood, of this walk, but of a lot of my work, is the importance of food, and food that is actually produced with elements from the locality, from the land. So we had here a wonderful lunch, and you can see that some of it was extremely nice, because when you open a little bag, one of the things that got everybody really excited was the forage beech leaves and how delicious they are, and the wood sorrel and sweet Sicily that were from the wood itself. So we were enjoying the place and eating the place. And I often think about how us as human beings, if we feel good in our bodies, we feel good. And we can pass this on to other people. And food serves as a catalyst to conversations and to meetings. Now, the Whitewood Waymakers were, at the end, I decided that the only way forward was to actually make little copper waymarkers that would be inserted in the ground on whatever we find on the way to the wood. So there's 49 of them, and they're very simple because there's just a leaf, it's an oak leaf, 7 little circles around it. And this is a photograph of them being made in a Scottish sculpture workshop. So I was very, very lucky because I asked, can I make them myself, please? So not only did I make the pattern, I actually make them. I didn't know how to, I had never made anything out of bronze. So the Scottish Sculpture Workshop is a fantastic place because they have amazing technicians who teach you, they don't do it for you. They teach you how to make it, and then you make it. But I didn't want to just make this. I wanted to bring the community into the making. So here you can see the rubber mold. So, and one of the running system, yes, which you need in order to, and the little wax piece. And we got schools to come in a garden. We were still working under COVID situations. And they were pouring the wax into the rubber molds. But more than that, they were also putting little messages on the back of it. Yes. So on the wax pieces, they were writing into it. And so they were thinking about things about forest, about community. So we'll have a lot of words like Gruffalo, yes, coming up. Another lovely words. But it was a very nice experience because I learned later on that there were a lot of, some of the children that took part in this kept on stopping in front of Deveron Project's garden and asking if there was more making happening, because they got very excited about this. And the other way the community was also part of it was we did an actual bronze pouring session at the Scottish Sculpture Workshop, and invited the community to come. And the community, so they saw how the last phase of nearly the last phase of the making, yes, when we had the shells, and the shells were ready to be filled with the bronze. So we had the whole process of heating up the furnace and working with this. So it's quite exciting to see this alchemy of how something hard becomes liquid and then hard again. And then the community not only watched, but they also took part in a sort of finishing of the pieces by filing the edges. And of course, people, like I said before, enter in conversation, have a good time, meet new people. That's us preparing the furnace. And this was all done publicly. But as part of this, again, there was a wonderful meal made. And a lady called Rosie, who actually made the meal, she lives nearby, near Huntley, and she's very interested in land and in food and foraging. And she transformed a swimming pool. So the image you can see here was a swimming pool into a garden, into a nursery. So this is a swimming pool becoming a nursery. And she made the most delicious lunch. So this is a taster. So Wanton's Well is her place. So she sold her house and opened her land to the public. So you can go and walk in her land and can go and gather things. So another example of somebody from the community sharing what they have. This was one, I think, very special lunch we had there again. Yes, and so those examples of working together, of communities being part of a project. Of course, there are many other things that happen in conversations, exchanges, talks, etc. But those conversations and those encounters are hugely important, in my view, in order to share a piece of work and make people aware that the work is there. And it might even get some people to think differently about the environment, because they have a different experience, because they're made aware of it suddenly through an artwork. Us as artists, we often find difficult to find a position in the world, we're doing things that are intangible. But if we can just, help someone to think differently, or to think again, or to just have a conversation, that's as much as we can hope for. I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for this wonderful introduction to your work, the work that you did in Scotland, and how you work with the community. I was really, really moved by that. How welcoming and how understanding of each other's knowledges, and very special sensitivity there.